Connect multiple devices simultaneously. Internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber. Connect multiple devices simultaneously. Internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber.
නව ඩොමෙක්ස් පැල්ලම් සහ විසබීජ අවම කර දින 3ක් දක්වා ටොයිලට් එක ෆ්‍රෙෂ්ව තමයි. ඩොමෙක්ස්.
Tonight, seal of approval. The Cabinet greenlights the Trincomalee oil tank farm joint venture, which is to be signed in a week's time. Action and reaction. The new 229 billion rupee economic relief package aims to ease public burdens and draw support against internal critics.
You can always step outside the government and criticize. That is why the opposition is there.
Small victories. The visiting United Nations Deputy Secretary General commends Sri Lanka's green push and announces a 7-point index improvement. Search and move. Expert says don't be too surprised by saltwater crocs in the sea as emergency operation launched to relocate the culprit.
Saltwater crocodile is capable of and are known to venture out into the ocean, even up to like thousands of kilometers out in the sea.
All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Tuesday, the 4th of January 2022.
ඉසේ සම පෝෂණය කර ඉසුරු ඉවත් කරමින් නැවත ඇතිවීම වළකයි. නව Clear Shampoo.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammika Ekanaik. Now then, the Cabinet has approved the setting up of Trinco Petroleum Terminals Private Limited for the joint development of 61 tanks at the Trincomalee oil tank farm. Further amendments were also approved to the value-added tax bill to increase value-added tax on financial services and exempt medical equipment, devices and chemicals donated to government hospitals and the Ministry of Health.
The weekly Cabinet briefing, the first for the new year, took place this morning. Announced today was the approval for a proposal by the Minister of Energy for the development of 61 tanks at the Trincomalee oil tank farm through a new entity named Trinco Petroleum Terminal Private Limited, a joint venture by the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and Lanka IOC. According to Subject Minister and Cabinet co-spokesperson Udaya Gammanpilla, the agreement will be inked within a week. Meanwhile, the Cabinet has also approved the Special Goods and Services Tax Bill proposed by the Minister of Finance, which is the introduction of a single system that will replace individual taxes collected on liquor, cigarettes, telecommunications, betting and gaming, and vehicles. Further, the amendment of the value-added tax to increase value-added tax on financial services and to exempt medical equipment, devices and chemicals donated to the government hospitals and the Ministry of Health under epidemic or public health situations also received the green light. Accordingly, both these bills will be gazetted and submitted for parliamentary approval within this month. In addition, the Cabinet of Ministers also approved the proposal for the installation of a battery systems for rooftop solar systems on self-financed investments through a new tariff system, which will provide consumers to have a more reliable supply. In the meantime, the proposal for the procurement of 500 32-seater buses from Lanka Ashok Leyland under the Indian Loan Grant Scheme also received the Cabinet nod. Meanwhile, on the 16th of November 2020, the Cabinet approved the purchase of 750 jeeps for the Sri Lanka Police, including 150 jeeps for the Police Special Task Force under the same Indian line of credit. Accordingly, bids have been invited from companies recommended by the Indian Export and Import Bank, and the Cabinet of Ministers has decided to award the supply to India's Mahindra and Mahindra. What's more, a relief package submitted by the Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa was also approved by the Cabinet. In the meantime, with Finance Minister Rajapaksa announcing the appointment of individual ministers to discuss the source of funds from specific donor countries yesterday, the matter was taken up for discussion at the Cabinet media briefing today.
අපිත් එක්ක දීර්ඝ කාලීනව සහයෝගයෙන් කටයුතු කරන රට අර්බුදයකට ලක් වෙච්ච හැම වෙලාවෙම අපිට මිත්‍රයන් විදිහට ඇවිල්ලා උදව් කරපු රටවල් කීපයක්ම තියෙනවා. ඒතර මේ රටවල් එක්ක වර්තමාන තත්ත්වය පිළිබඳ සාකච්ඡා කළා ඔවුන්ගේ ආධාර ලබා ගැනීම වෙනුවෙන් වූ සාකච්ඡා කණ්ඩායමක් කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලය තුලින් පත් කරන්නට කියලා යෝජනාවක් කරා. ඒ වෙනුව කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලය තීරණය කරේ ජනාධිපතිතුමාට බලය පැවරුවා එක රටවල් වලට අදාළව අමාත්‍යවරු නම් කරලා ඒ කමිටු පත් කරන්නට කියලා. එහෙම නැතුව කමිටු පත් කිරීමක් ඊයේ සිද්ධ වුණේ නැහැ. ඒ යෝජනාව එකගතයට පළ කරා. මම හිතනවා ලබන කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලය රැස් වෙන අවස්ථාව වෙනකොට ජනාධිපතිතුමාට නිවේදනය කරાવી.
නියම ක්වලිටියට හැදෙන අලුත් ටියාරා රස පදමට අලුත් වෙලා.
Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa unveiled a 229 billion rupee relief package yesterday in a bid to support the public affected by double-digit inflation that has resulted in major increases in the prices of goods and services. Some of major benefits include tax exemptions for essential food items and medicines and a monthly allowance of 5,000 rupees for public servants, pensioners and disabled army personnel. Discussions are to be held with employers on providing the same in the private sector as well.
Speaking at a media briefing last evening, Minister of Finance Basil Rajapaksa announced a relief package worth 229 billion rupees to the public. According to the new package, a monthly allowance of 5,000 rupees will be provided for public servants, pensioners and disabled army personnel from this month on. Measures will also be taken to provide this concession to the private sector as well, following discussions with employers. Meanwhile, some of the beneficiaries who are already receiving a monthly allowance of 3,500 rupees will get an additional allowance of 1,000 rupees from this month. Speaking further, the Finance Minister also said that a supplementary price of 25 rupees per kilogram of paddy, in addition to the certified price of 50 rupees per kilogram, will be provided if a reduction in paddy harvest was observed in the upcoming season. He said that the consumers will bear no additional burden as the total cost for this will be borne by the government. What's more, farmers engaged in home cultivation on a plot of land under 20 purchasers will receive an allowance of 5,000 rupees. 10,000 rupees will be paid to farmers who cultivate land more than 20 purchase and less than an acre. In addition, Finance Minister Rajapaksa said that 15 kilograms of wheat flour will be provided at a concessionary price of 80 rupees per kilogram to the estate community. In conclusion, he also announced that all essential food items and medicines will be exempted from taxes.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has taken steps to remove State Minister of Education reforms, open universities and distance education promotion Susil Premajantha with immediate effect. Speaking to the media at the time of his departure from his state ministry, Premajantha labelled his removal as a blessing for his future political career.
Susil Premajantha was elected to Parliament representing the Colombo district through the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramana at the 2020 general elections. Thereafter, on the 26th of August 2020, Premajantha was sworn in as the State Minister of Education Reforms, Open Universities and Distance Education Promotion. However, after 1 year and 4 months in his post, the former State Minister last Sunday ruffled some political feathers within the government through comments he made to the media during a visit to the Delkanda Fair. At the time, Premajantha criticized the government's handling of 3 key issues, namely the cost of living, fertilizer and the country's dollar issues. When questioned by media personnel on the high prices of vegetables at the fair, this is what he had to say.
බලමිල අඩු කරන්න ඉතින් වෙලඳ ඇමතිලා ආහාර ඇමතිලා දැනගන්න එපා කෘෂිකර්ම ඇමතිලා. අම්මිරිස් කිලෝ 1200යි. ඔව්. ඒතකොට මේ හරි හැමදේම 650 පැනලා. ඔව්. ඒක විශේෂ භාරව ඉන්න අය ආණ්ඩුවේ දැනගන්න ඕනේ බඩු මිල පාලනය කරලා දෙන්න. ඒක පාලනය කරන්න පුළුවන්ද මොකක්ද මේක වරද? පාලනය කරන්න ඉතින් වෙලපයින් සූදානම් වෙලා කරන්න එපා. පෝර නැති කළාම ගොවියන්ට පෝර දාලා කොහොමද පළදාව ගන්න? කරන්න බැරි දේවල් කරන්න ගිහලා තමයි රටම අමාරුයි දාලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒකට වග කියන්න ඕනේ තීන්දුව ගත්ත අය. ඔය ඩොලර් ප්‍රශ්නේ ඉතින් ඩොලර් නැති කරපුවාගෙන් අහන්න ඕනේ ඩොලර් කොහෙද තියෙන්නේ කියලා. කෘෂිකර්මතුමා ෆේල් නේ. ෆේල් අය කවුද කියලා පේනවා මිනිස්සුන්ට. අපි ආණ්ඩුවට අපි තීන්දුව ගන්න තැන් වල නැහැ නේ අපි බංගුවක් උඩ තියලා තියෙන්නේ. අපි රිසර්ව් ඉන්නේ. හරි තීන්දුව ගන්න තිබුණා. දැන් කල් පැනලා. දැන් ඉතින් වෙන කට්ටියකට තමයි තීන්දුව ගන්න වෙන්නේ. ඔය ඉන්න කට්ටියට තීන්දුව අරන් හරියන්නේ නැහැ. සම්පූර්ණ වාක්‍යම ගන්න ඕනේ. මේ විෂය භාරව ඉන්න ඇමතිවරු තීන්දුව ගත්ත ප්‍රතිපත්ති තීන්දුව ගත්ත අය. කරන්න බැරි අය ඉංගල පුරුවන් අරලා දෙන්න ඕනේ. එච්චරයි තියෙන්නේ.
Following these comments, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, using his executive powers, decided to remove Premajantha from his state ministry with immediate effect. With that, Premajantha vacated the State Ministry of Education Reforms, Open Universities and Distance Education Promotion today and offered some parting comments to media personnel before leaving the premises in a 3-wheeler taxi.
මට ආරංචි මේ රාජ්‍ය අමාත්‍යවරුන් අයින් කළා කියලා මේව ලොකු දේවල් නෙවෙයි. ඉතින් මම ඇමතිවරයෙක් වුණේ 2000 පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ආපු ගමන්. ඉතින් ජනාධිපතිතුරු 3 දිනක් යටතේ මම වැඩ කළා තියෙනවා. මේක ඉතින් අපේ මගේ වෘත්තියක් තියෙනවනේ. හෙට ඉඳලා එහේ යනවා උසාවියට. දැන් මේ සම්බන්ධව ඔබතුමාට දැනුවත් කරලා තියෙනවා. නෑ එහෙම දැනුවත් කරන්නේ නෑනේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන්. මාධ්‍යෙන් එහෙම තමයි අපි දැනගන්නේ අයින් කළයි කියලා. දැන් ඔබතුමාව ඉවත් කරන්න හේතුකාරණා එහෙම හේතු දක්වන්න අවශ්‍ය නැහැ නේ විධායක ජනාධිපතිවරයාට බලතල තියෙන ඕන කෙනෙක්ව පත් කරන්න ඕන කෙනෙක්ව අයින් කරන්න.
දැන් ඔබතුමා වගේ ජ්‍යෙෂ්ඨයෙක් මේ ආණ්ඩුව නිවත් කළා මොකද්ද මේ අය මේ කරන්නේ?
ආණ්ඩුවේ හැටියට මම ජ්‍යෙෂ්ඨ නැතුව ඇති. හැබැයි රටේ දේශපාලනේ හැටියට මම මගේ යුතුයකම් කොටස ඉටු කරලා තිනවා මේ හැම ජනාධිපතිවරයෙක් යටතේම. වෙච්ච දේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් මම හිතන්නේ මගේ අනාගත දේශපාලනයට ආශිර්වාදයක් මේක. රටේ ඉතින් වැඩපිළිවෙල යන හැටියට ආර්ථික කටයුතු මෙහෙවන හැටියට රටේ අනිත් කටයුතු මෙහෙවන හැටියට පේනවා කොහටද අපි යන්නේ කියලා හිතන අද. ඒ වගේම අපි කතා කිරීම ජනතාව වෙනුවෙන් කතා කිරීමක්.
Meanwhile, at this morning's cabinet media briefing, Media Minister Dallas Alahaperuma was questioned about the reason for Premajantha's removal.
මාධ්‍ය සාකච්ඡාවට එන ගමන් තමයි මේ ප්‍රවෘත්තිය කනවැකුනේ. ඊයේ කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයේදී සාකච්ඡා කරපු තීන්දුවක් නෙමෙයි මේක. ව්‍යවස්ථාවෙන් ජනාධිපතිතුමාට පැවරලා තියෙන බලතල අනුව එතුමා විසින් ගනු ලැබූ තීරණයක්. පක්ෂයක් අභ්‍යන්තරේ සාකච්ඡා කරලා ගනු ලැබූ තීරණයක් නෙමෙයි. අපේ සමීප මිත්‍රෙක් විදිහට අපි මේ පිළිබඳව ක්ෂණිකවම දැනුනේ කනගාටුවක්. නමුත් ඒක ජනාධිපතිතුමාට ඕන වෙලාවක දැන් මට මාව අයින් කරන්න තීරණය කරොත් මට අයින් කරන්න පුළුවන්. කියන විදිහේ හේතුවක් මේ මොහොතේ ඉදිරිපත් කළ තිබ්බේ නෑ මෙන්න මේක හින්දා කියලා. අපි හෙට දවසේ බලමු මොකද්ද මේකට අදාළ වූ ප්‍රධාන හේතුව කුමක්ද කියලා.
In the meantime, State Minister of Estate Housing and Community Infrastructure, Jeevan Thondaman, says that the critics within the government should first step out of the government before having their say on policies. Addressing a media briefing, he said that what is currently required is constructive criticism that brings about solutions.
Addressing a media briefing today, State Minister of Estate Housing and Community Infrastructure Jeevan Thondaman praised measures announced by the Finance Minister targeting the estate community. However, he also called on government members that criticism must come from outside the government and not while sitting within it.
The thing is, if you look at it globally, there are governments which are not doing so well in times of this pandemic. And the simple answer is because nobody understands what this pandemic is. Even now, when everyone thought we were able to give a solution to the pandemic, now we have a new variant coming in, and what's to say we won't get another variant? So with that being the case, the government is only functioning at what it can do, with what it's given. And, I personally feel, again, this is my personal opinion, and what I personally feel is there are people within the government criticizing the government and saying all sorts of things. The thing is, criticizing the government is different from bringing out, identifying the problem and bringing a solution. Now, for example, we had a fertilizer issue, and the CWC, the Ceylon Workers Congress, was not too happy about the fertilizer decision, and we brought it forward to the president, and we brought it forward to the prime minister and the plantation minister, because at the end of the day, we are in the government, and we have means of which we can communicate it to them. So when you can talk to them, we don't see a reason why many of the people in position in the government are criticizing the government. I mean, the solutions can be found. Or, you can always step outside the government and criticize. That is why the opposition is there.
We will see you shortly on the other side of this break. Bear with us.
Big 3.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, another preliminary study has discovered that vaccinated Omicron patients developed enough antibodies needed to avoid contracting previous COVID variants such as Alpha, Beta, Gamma and Delta. However, despite these new studies, health authorities continue to urge people to exercise caution as these studies are still preliminary.
The Omicron variant was first detected in South Africa on the 26th of November 2021. In the 3 weeks that followed, the number of Omicron cases rose in the country. However, the spike in cases was short-lived as cases began to decline shortly after. Meanwhile, another preliminary study conducted on patients in South Africa has identified 63% of patients that had been hospitalized with what is known as incidental COVID. Patients with incidental COVID are patients who had been admitted to hospitals for other medical requirements, such as surgeries, obstetric or psychiatric diagnoses, etc. The study revealed that of those who had been admitted for COVID, only 45% needed oxygen compared to 99% of patients who required oxygen treatment in previous waves. Further, the percentages of deaths resulting from Omicron was 4.5% compared to 21.3% reported during previous waves, while ICU admissions were 1% compared to 4.3% during previous waves. Meanwhile, the length of a patient's stay in hospitals has also drastically reduced to 4 days in Omicron-infected patients compared to around 8.8 days needed by patients infected with earlier variants. In the meantime, another preliminary study has also offered some positive news for Omicron patients. The study has shown that mild Omicron infections in patients who have been vaccinated produce broad neutralizing antibodies against other variants. This means that if you are an Omicron-infected patient who has contracted the virus despite getting the vaccine, it's not all doom and gloom. According to the study, mild breakthrough patients had developed enough antibodies to prevent them from contracting former variants, such as the Alpha, Beta, Gamma and Delta variants. However, experts including the World Health Organization say people must be cautious despite these developments because it still remains preliminary data. Meanwhile, Deputy Director of Education and Research at the Ministry of Health warns that it is more than likely that Sri Lanka will experience a surge in Omicron cases at some point.
People are talking about catastrophic increase of Omicron patients in the country, and this is not an impossible situation. However, everything depends on the behavior of our citizens of this country, whether it is Omicron or Delta or any other variant. This will be fast spreading only if the people let it spread. That means if they don't adhere to the health guidelines and if they don't get their vaccination appropriately, there is a possibility of rise in cases in the coming days. But we know that if we can adhere to the health guidelines, this can be controlled and contained, for which we need to make sure that even though the country is open for social and economic activities, it is important to adhere to the health guideline to the letter and get your vaccination appropriately so that whether it is Omicron or any other variant, we can control COVID.
Sri Lanka's Green Agricultural Programme has been commended by UN Assistant Secretary General Kanni Wignaraja during a meeting with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the Presidential Secretariat this morning. Wignaraja serves as the United Nations Development Programme's Assistant Administrator and Director of the Regional Bureau of Asia and the Pacific. Wignaraja pointed out that Sri Lanka was ranked 87th out of 165 countries in the 2021 Sustainable Development Report, a 7-point improvement from 2020. Discussions also centred on attracting foreign investors to the Green Agriculture Programme and what needs to be done to develop the current environment. Now then, crocodile experts are not surprised by the sight of the reptile in the sea, which they say is a natural adaptation which contributes towards expanding their range. These remarks were made today in the light of yesterday's incident where a diver was snatched by a crocodile in the seas of Dehiwala. The northeastern monsoon rains were also given as a reason for the saltwater crocodile to venture into the sea.
An unfortunate incident of a diver being snatched away by a crocodile was reported yesterday. The incident occurred at around 10:30 last morning, when the 57-year-old veteran diver had been making his way back from deep water fishing. As shocking as the unfortunate incident is, some experts say that it is not as uncommon as we think. This is because Sri Lanka is home to two types of crocodiles, namely the saltwater or estuarine crocodile and the mugger or marsh crocodile. Saltwater crocodiles are known to locals as the halakimula, while the mugger crocodile is referred to as the gatakimula. As such, the saltwater or estuarine crocodiles naturally possess more resistance to saltwater and can be found in coastal regions of the country, preferably in estuaries and blackish waters. This allows estuarine crocodiles to venture out into seas on occasion under certain circumstances. However, environmental experts believe that spontaneous attacks of this nature are rare.
Saltwater crocodile is capable of and are known to venture out in the ocean, even up to thousands of kilometers out in the sea. Saltwater crocodiles, however, are known to venture out in the ocean using these well-developed, fully functional soil glands. This is why we should not think that seeing a crocodile in the coast of Sri Lanka is not normal. So this particular incident that happened yesterday is an incident that falls in the northeast monsoon period, and we have the East Indian Ocean current that flows along the eastern coast of India and Sri Lanka, and that eventually joins in with the northeast monsoon current flows from the northern Indian Ocean and heads towards the western side and moves northwards. During this time, crocodiles can use surface ocean currents and travel from place to place. Since the advent of social media and most of our population having access to mobile phones with cameras, we have seen an increase in reporting of incidents of crocodiles off the coast of Sri Lanka, and this doesn't necessarily mean that there's an increase of crocodiles swimming in our coastal waters. It's just simply an increase of reporting.
Previous sightings of saltwater crocodiles have been reported in the areas of Vellavatta and Bambalapitiya but have never resulted in any harm to humans. However, they say that as the crocodile grows in size, land mammals become their preferred choice of meal, and this could also naturally include humans too. However, following yesterday's incident, Minister of Wildlife and Forest Conservation C.B. Ratnayaka reassured the public that the Department of Wildlife along with the Navy have been deployed to capture and relocate the reptile.
Welcome back, this is First at 9. Now at the Colombo Bourse, the all-share price index gained 174.72 points to end at 12,800.54 today. The S&P SL20 index of more liquid stocks meanwhile ended at 4,377.05, following a loss of 33.70 points. The market turnover was 10.8 billion rupees. Now with that, here's Dimantha Matthew with a brief report on today's market performance.
Very high level of turnover was recorded today, so you can see that the confidence levels are rising and the number of transactions and activity in the market are significantly moving up in value, because you can see with a less number of crossings in the market, there is very high level of turnover. Turnover today has passed 10 billion mark to reach 10.8 billion rupees, and the number of transactions similar to yesterday, over 70,000, reaching 76,000 during the day. The banking sector and the diversified financial sector is leading the way. Diversified financial sector has played a major role in terms of turnover and gains in terms of the index. In addition to that, we are seeing strong interest in the capital goods counters, and also the new shares that has come into the market is having some serious investor interest, and a lot of turnover is being generated around these new shares.
The Sri Lankan rupee, meanwhile, remained unchanged at 202.99 cents against the US dollar today as well. Now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee fared against other major currencies during the day. Now, Japanese shares jumped more than 1% on the first trading day of the year today after an opening ceremony graced by the Japanese finance minister was held at the Tokyo Stock Exchange to mark the day. Investors shrugged off concerns about the spread of the coronavirus even after Tokyo confirmed the highest number of daily infections since October, with increasing cases of the Omicron variant yesterday. Early growth was led by strong performances in chip-related heavyweights and automakers, while Wall Street's overnight upbeat finish also boosted risk appetite. The Nikkei shares average was up 1.4% at 29,190.05 by afternoon, and the broader topics advanced 1.25% to 2,017.17 points. Over in Shanghai, developer shares rose on the first trading day of 2022 for mainland markets. The Shanghai Composite Index started up at 3,649.15 points by 9.37 points today. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.